Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. An absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you. For people who don't know anything about Father of Flies, can you just give us a brief introduction? What can they expect?
Well, Father of Flies is a horror movie, but it does have a really good story, and it's about a family. And I play the newcomer to the family because I'm the new boyfriend of the father of the house, whose relationship with the mother of his children hasn't worked out. So it's a family story, but it is a horror as a genre.
And I believe the writer-director Ben, this was very heavily influenced by his experiences as a child, and it was a story that had stayed with him. So, what was the appeal for you when you read the script and working with him on a story that meant a lot to him?
Well, it's always great to have someone who's really lived something, because it comes from a place of something really heartfelt that he was passionate about. And he remembered it really clearly through his childhood eyes. And it was a little bit offensive that he saw me as someone that he didn't really like as a child, but perceptions can change. And it was very appealing because the script was very good, and Ben's a very creative man, and he started out actually as a fine artist, and so I was drawn into it for its storyline and for Ben's creativity and his passion on the subject.
And how did you see your character? I mean, at one point she gets referred to as kind of a creepy Mary Poppins, and you sort of, she's a mysterious character, and are we looking at her through the lens of the children as the villain? But then is that just how they see her? Is that who she really is? So how did you see her as a character?
Well, we shoot the movie in America, and everybody else is American, and sometimes there's a prejudice towards people with English accents, and sometimes it's a good assumption about sort of cleverness or something, but sometimes it's awful. It's also a sort of evilness people can see in it. But I decided to keep my accent because it added, I felt, to her feelings of being an outsider and stepping into a group that and trying to fit in. She fell in love, and she hoped that love would prevail, but it isn't easy going into a family that's already had its history and trying to take over. And children, usually love their mother, and somebody comes in to replace their mother in a way, at least, sleep in their father's bedroom and take over in the kitchen and stuff. It can really not be very nice for children. But I believed in her. I mean, she also had her life to live, and so she has a story.
And what about working with your fellow cast? I mean, so sad that, of course, it's one of the last films that Nicholas Tucci did. So what was it like working with him? And then also these incredible, young actors, Keaton and Paige. Particularly Keaton gives just a phenomenal performance for someone so young. So what was it like working with this cast?
Well, Nicholas was such a fantastic guy, and a really amazing guy, and he didn't tell us anything about not being well, which is so sad because he knew he wasn't well, but I suppose he thought he'd get better, and he didn't tell anyone. And unfortunately he had cancer, and he was fighting it at the time when we were shooting, and unfortunately he never got to see the film. But the film is dedicated to him, and he's actually been in other horror films as well, and he was a really, really great actor, And I suppose the reason that he didn't tell anyone was because he wanted to keep on working. And business can be so ruthless. If he'd have said, "Oh, I've got cancer," then people would have said, "Well, we're not going to cast you because, you know, we have insurance difficulties and so on, and we're just not going to cast you." So he went on doing films, which is what he really wanted to do. So he was, before I knew that, he inspired me because he's a great actor and a really good American guy. And then knowing that, I thought that was a really courageous and humble thing to do. And I was devastated when that happened. And Paige was really new to acting, and was just brilliant. And Keaton too. But I do think there's almost an advantage being a child, because your imagination is so pure and your instincts are so good. And when you say something that may seem implausible to an adult happens, you know, they sometimes can believe it more wholeheartedly. And Keaton was really fully believing. And one of the difficulties in acting is that you just don't want to overact, and you want to make it, you know, plausible and natural. And they were both brilliant. And I think they were very well cast.
And what might have been some of the highlights and challenges of the shoot? I mean, I guess there's something about filming a horror film, which, you know, lots maybe added in afterwards. You know, the sound design heavily kind of adds in that layer of creepiness. But also, I don't know, you know, how much of it was quite creepy acting out in that house, and about playing with that mask, which of course becomes quite kind of a strong visual image throughout the film.
Yeah, I mean, the mask, and this was pre-corona, so we weren't as sick of masks as we are now, but it is not like a corona mask. It's a full mask, and actually they exist, and strangely enough, I have one. It's a light mask, and it's really great for beautification and for getting rid of spots and wrinkles and all sorts. And she spends quite a lot of time at home because her boyfriend, I suppose, she isn't married to him yet, is at work, and she's hanging around at home, and she just wears her mask quite a lot. And I think actually the wearing of it is pretty uncomfortable and mundane, really. She watches television wearing this mask, just whiling away the hours until her boyfriend comes back from work. But to someone looking at it, it's really very creepy, but works as a brilliant metaphor for, because lots of people wear masks and you don't know what they really are, and what their fake persona is. So that was an obvious but pretty good metaphor. So there was that. And was it creepy? Well, yeah, everyone can relate to, you're alone in the house and you hear something and you don't know what's going on. And I was absolutely able to relate to that sense of fear and intrepidness of being alone, particularly as this house was in the middle of a forest in a valley, in a snowy, isolated valley. And
ultimately, what do you hope people will take away from watching it? Because I guess it always feels like it is part of this the trend, if you like, or there's, it's kind of elevated horror that, it is very psychological, and there's a lot of themes in there about family and, how, especially as kids, how we deal with change in our family and your parents and all these sorts of things. But then there's also the entertainment side and the jump scares and all the rest. So what do you hope people take away?
Well, I hope that people take away the deeper message of things aren't always what they seem to be, and people aren't always what they seem to be. And sometimes you can think someone isn't very nice at all, and maybe actually they are, and of course vice versa. And that's I hope that people can think that, because I think that's one of the scariest things about horror, really, is what is real and what is not real, and what is to be believed and what isn't. So that's the deeper thing. And then on the more on the lighter thing, just to have fun and to escape for a moment into another world and have their emotions pinged and feel something different, have a good time watching a movie.
And how do you reflect on your career so far, and can you tell us a bit about the projects you're working on at the moment? You've done so many incredible different things, Phantom Thread and Very British Scandal, that recent project with Sadie Frost, Quant. So yeah, can you tell us a bit about stuff so far and what you might have on the horizon?
Well, I've had a very fun time, and I'm really glad that I haven't, I suppose on the whole, I'm really glad that I haven't had a permanent role. Some actors get sort of very lucky in having a permanent role, which is permanent employment. And but I have had lots of different roles, and that's such a joy in being an actress, and just to be able to change like that. But it's also very precarious, and you just don't know what's coming next. And at the moment, I'm waiting to find out what I'm going to do next. And I don't know even if I'll be here in my house in London with my children next month. I might just have to go away somewhere else and just leave them in the hands of my really supportive family. At the moment, it really is up in the air. I've got 2 projects which are pending, and I don't know if I'll get them or not. So I'm living the really quite stressful life of an actress right now, the worst bits, but there is actually worse. There's something worse, which is waiting for nothing.
Oh, well, I think I'm out of time, but it's been such a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks very much for sharing that with us, and can't wait for everyone else to see Father of Flies and, of course, your future projects. Lovely to chat to you, Camilla. Thanks so much. Cheers.